Hi, on today's episode of A Couple of Things, I talk with one of my dearest friends, Ernie, about a lot of things. We really talked about almost everything. I struggled so hard to think of a title for this episode. But anyway, we talked about biases and having biases, friendship breakups, streaks, measuring things, understanding people versus validating bad behaviors, receiving counsel from people, calling out your friends, what we're learning about our faith. We really talked about a lot of things and I laughed a lot and I know that you will enjoy this episode. So get ready. Hi, welcome to today's episode of your favorite daily podcast. A couple of things, a podcast about things. I have a guest, one of my dearest friends in the world. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Actually, no, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. My name is early. It's like early in the morning, and I've known Nade for what, 8 years now?
10 years.
Eight
This
years.
no,
It's
not
going on
10 years.
8 years.
Eight
Yeah,
eight
eight
years. 8
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Which is quite some time.
Yes.
hmm And still, every time you introduce yourself, it's still funny to me. So you know how people are like, oh, your name tells about who you are and the kind of person you are and all of those things.
Yeah.
You are the one person that I know whose name is the exact opposite of how they are.
To be honest, I'm already early, right? So I don't think there's a point in doing a bit extra about it because no matter what happens, I'm always going to be early. How I see it. That's how I see it.
Okay, you have a good point there. Fair
Yes.
points.
So
But yeah, anyway, so we're gonna start off how I always start off, which is what's on your mind today.
that is a good question. Thank you very much for that question.
You're like the fourth person that's responding in this way.
Thank you very much for that question. There's a lot of things on my mind all the time.
Okay,
So,
let's get into it.
the first thing on my mind, waking up to poo in the middle of the night.
What?
Yes.
Early, please.
I'm serious. I'm actually very serious. Like, has
Not on my
has that happened
podcast.
to you before? Like, just waking up in the middle of the night and having to go and use the bathroom. And it's so inconveniencing because one, you're just not in the mood. You're you might not be as alert. And this is very serious business we're talking about here. But
No, you should actually see my face right now. Like this is not what I expected. Like that. This is the last thing that would have crossed my mind. What?
well, that's what's on my mind. That's the top thing on my mind. There's a bunch of other things on my mind, so we're going to go through that list. But this is the top thing on my mind. So um,
Why is this? I have so many questions. Why is this the top thing on your mind?
it's just been. I just think it's a very inconveniencing experience, and we don't talk about it enough, or even at all. But it's just a very integral part of the human living experience.
I don't know. The only thing that happens to me in the middle of the night is I want to pee. I don't know about this popping thing.
To be honest, right? Peeing is. I mean, it's very pedestrian, but I think it's also a thing where
What?
if you've ever experienced having to wake up in the night to poo, then you will know what I'm talking about. Like,
I don't think I've ever experienced this.
okay, maybe that's why. Like, I feel like people who have experienced it once or twice, or even quite often, you know how inconveniencing it is. Or even like the scenario where you go to pee and then right before you get up to do it, it immediately switches, like it does a quick one on you, and now you're sat there and you're thinking of like, I'm losing out on precious sleep time because because of this.
Okay.
But yeah.
What What else is on your mind today?
Okay. I think the next thing on my mind, which is like the total twist, is friendship breakups.
Okay. There's a lot going on in your mind in different. I don't even know what to say. But please go ahead.
Yeah,
What about friendship breakups?
it's so I recently experienced one, and it was just a very, very interesting position and place to be in.
Hmm.
I think that we all talk about, well, maybe it's a thing where breaking up with a friend or having to be in a situation where you're having to break up a friendship, or maybe not break it up, but more or less scale it down. So let's say you were at a 4 out of 5. A 5 is like the closest bond you can ever have with someone, and you're having to scale
Mm-hmm.
it down to maybe a 2, just because like just stuff happens and you're not really on the same page
Mm.
anymore. I think having to do that is scary. It's also very it's quite a very emotional like place to be in. It almost feels like you have to do it because it's probably the right thing to do, but it's also very emotionally draining because you're like, in the moment where you're having to make that decision, either having to have the conversation or just thinking about the warm up or the build up to that moment where you have the conversation or send the text or whatever. I think that like, all the flashes, all the memories just flash in your face. The times you've had together, you're looking through pictures. It's just a very, it feels like a very unnatural thing to do. But at the same time, I don't know a lot of people who have been through it, but I just feel like being through this has made me want to talk to someone about it. So, um,
I'm so sorry about your friendship breakup.
yeah.
Friendship breakups suck. And so this wasn't like a clean break where you went to like 5-0. You're
Mm,
still in touch with this person, but
yeah, I'm
the
still,
relationship is not the same.
yeah, it's not quite the same. And I had to do the breaking up, so it was just a thing
Oh.
where it's like, hey, yeah, it was quite painful. But I think I'm dealing with it in a sense where we're not entirely blocked. Like we haven't blocked each other like on social media or anything. It's just
Hmm.
we're in, and it's also not a situation where if we see each other in person, we're not going to say hi. But it's just we're not going to probably hang out or relate as closely as we used to. But it's also weird in a sense because like, what is this? Like, how do you then scale down your friendships? Most people are just used to cutting that person off and moving on, right?
Off entirely,
Yeah,
yeah.
but this is, I guess this is why it's quite difficult for me because, yeah,
Do you think that you would become friends again on like a level 4 or 5?
yeah. I mean, five being the highest, I think it's probably going to be like at a one or two now,
Mm-hmm.
depending on obviously the effort. But I think now it's probably a one. Um, they
Mm.
blocked me on Duolingo, which I think was quite painful.
What?
Yeah, but it's funny
You
because
can block people on Duolingo?
yeah, you can unfriend people and block people on Duolingo. So I just
I
noticed that
didn't know that.
that person was no longer like my friend on Duolingo. Yeah, I think that was, but they didn't block me on Instagram or Twitter anywhere, but just on Duolingo, which I think was
That's
quite
very
personal.
interesting.
Like, do you not want to see my progress anymore?
But you're the one who broke up with them.
Yeah, but I mean, fair enough. If I was gonna block someone, I wouldn't block them on Duolingo. It was just speaking
No,
of
I'm,
which,
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but blocking someone on Duolingo is funny to me. Like,
it
it's
is.
so random.
It was, and I noticed because it's like, oh, my follower count went down. I don't follow a lot of people on Duolingo, and it's not a lot of people following me. So I just like, huh. And I looked, and the person was no longer on the list. I was like, wow, you blocked
Oh,
me on Duolingo. Anyway,
so sorry.
speaking of Duolingo,
I'm so
today's
sorry.
day 153.
Nice. I was going to say, speaking of Duolingo, what language are you learning?
Um,
Or languages are
I'm
you learning?
I'm supposed to be learning Spanish and French, but guess what I've been doing with my Duolingo?
What?
Math and music.
Math. They
Yes.
have math in Duolingo.
Yes, they have math and music. And so,
I've really not been on Duolingo in a very long time. I don't know what's going on. They
yeah.
now have math.
Yes, it's math. It starts with very elementary math, and you build up to these more complex situations where you're learning fractions and
Interesting.
shapes and parallelograms, and just it's pretty intense stuff. And also music. I'm learning like proper music lessons now. It's obviously it's more of a refresher, but it's my cop out. So
Yeah, it's like you're a very music guy.
yeah, so that's how I keep myself interested um, with I guess keep my mind just more engaged and not bored with just doing it every day. So on some days when I get bored with music, I do math, and some other days when I'm bored with math, I do music, and then when I'm bored with both of them, I do Spanish or French. So
Hmm.
um, yeah,
I should check it out,
yeah, you should,
actually.
you
Maybe
should.
this is what will get me back on Duolingo because I personally think that Duolingo is the worst app for learning a language.
Really? So
So,
what's bad about it for you?
okay, so my problem with Duolingo for learning a language, at least some people say that, oh, if you log in on like your computer on a desktop device, that you'll be able to access more things. I think that Duolingo is great to an extent to widen your vocabulary, but in terms of actually learning a language, like the grammar, the structure, the syntax, blah 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 of the language,
Hmm.
Duolingo is the worst app. Like you actually don't learn anything in
Interesting.
relation to those things.
Really?
The only thing that I think Duolingo is helpful for is the vocabulary. And another thing I really hate about it is that the strict thing gives you the impression that you are learning the language. Oh, I've done Duolingo for 1,500 days, but you only know common server. So
Hmm.
what are we doing here?
That's a good point. But I think the scientists said that the science checks out. So maybe
Well, maybe my brain doesn't work the same way as other
exactly.
people's brains.
Yeah, I think it's also a thing where like if that's not how you learn, then that's just not how you learn, right? Like you're not incentivized
Yeah,
to
I
learn
don't,
those streaks, so it's just what it is.
because I was just like the strict thing irritated me so much. That's actually why I uninstalled it. That was the first thing that irritated me. I was like, you can't, like, no, I'm not under bondage. What's this?
Do
No.
you
Um
speaking of streaks, how do you then feel about the Bible app having streaks in them? Are you more comfortable in that setting just because it's still the same mechanic, right?
I actually don't care about the streaks in the Bible app. I've unshackled myself from streaks. And I talked about this a bit on, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, about how like the whole idea of it is quite silly to me. So for example, I actually have another app that I use for learning Dutch, and I'm doing Dutch classes and I have Dutch homework and everything. So
Hmm.
if I do my Dutch class that day and I have homework that I do and I practice Dutch and I speak Dutch to someone that day, simply because I don't open that app and do an exercise on the app, I've lost my streak. What does that mean? Like I'm not learning Dutch. Makes no sense. Same thing with the Bible app. Like I have a physical Bible that I read now more often than I'm in the Bible app.
Hmm.
So if I read my Bible today and I don't open the Bible app, have I not read my Bible? Like
Yeah, that's
it
true.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
My thing now is I'm starting to like remove myself from the idea that I need to track everything
Hmm.
in an app. Like I don't track my steps anymore. I don't care. Have I gotten a walk in? Yes. Have I gotten a workout? Yes. I don't need to know the specifics of how many steps and how many calories and all of those things. I don't care.
Do you not care because you you don't find that information useful, or you don't care because you're just trying to break out of the system?
It could be both because I just realized that like we're tracking so many things about ourselves that is simply not necessary. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about like this very idea, and they were like somebody was like, oh, that they were talking to their colleague, they were asking them like, oh, that did they have a good night's rest or did they sleep well or something? And I was like, oh, he
Hmm.
has to check his app to see. I'm like, what does that mean? Like you don't know if you slept well. You have to open an app to check your sleep score.
That is
What
crazy.
does that mean?
Yeah,
So I'm just like, yeah, okay. I think that was why I started getting conscious about the fact that wait, I'm tracking too many things. Like it doesn't. Did I sleep well? Do I feel like I slept well?
that's what's important. How
Do I
you feel.
feel well rested?
Mm.
Okay, I don't care. Like I mean, there is a place for these things. There are people that need those things. So
Hmm.
I'm not saying like it's totally bad,
Yeah.
but I think like, for the most part, for most people, we actually don't need this level of tracking and data about ourselves. You're not a machine.
It does beg the question then, like, wouldn't it be better if we weren't very, like, if the tracking happened either way, but you're not hyper aware of it, so that on the days when you don't sleep well, for instance, then that data is there to show you, if you choose to investigate, like, why didn't I sleep well? Or maybe this is why I didn't sleep well, because of XYZ, as opposed to it being the validation for you sleeping well.
No, but like you can also still do that
How
without
so?
the app.
How so?
So if I'm tracking my sleep quality and I say, oh, today is what? Today is the 13th of August. Okay, I woke up, I feel well rested. If you want to do that, you can say you can track what time you went to bed, what time you woke up. You can track what you ate before you went to bed, or how long ago you ate
Hmm.
before you went to bed. Did you work out before going to bed? Like you can track those things. You can have the things that you track, and then over time analyze it and say, oh, on the days where I ate an hour before bed, I didn't wake up well rested.
Hmm.
For example, I don't know. I'm just giving a random example. So like I don't necessarily have to have an app constantly tracking my sleep every day. Because even a lot of the time, those apps are not giving you that level of information. It's just, oh, you spent 2 hours in REM sleep. What the heck does that mean? Like, what am I using that to do?
Fair enough.
Like it doesn't tell me, it doesn't actually track all these other things around your sleep, which are things that influence your sleep quality.
That's true. That's fair. Unless you pay big bucks for the more
Exactly.
high def data.
So like most of those things you can actually, if you want to do something over a period of time, you can actually track it. Like one of my friends, she tracks like her cycle and her moods and everything. And I don't think she's an app, but like she knows like, oh, I've tracked this thing for like a year or 2 years or even more. And so I know that pre my period starting in 2 or 3 days before my period starts, this is how I am and this is how I feel. Like she doesn't need the app to tell her. She knows already because she has been tracking it by herself.
Yeah,
So again, many of these things are not
unnecessary.
useful to most people most of the time. There are people who definitely need it in their own context, but I think that for the most part, it's like most of us actually don't need
Don't
these
need them.
things. It's just like, and I think part of the issue is there's this need that we have to quantify everything. And if
Yes.
it's not quantified, if it's not a number, it's a
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
And I see that especially like in my work. So I'm saying that this is also part of the problem, that need to quantify everything, to say that if there is no quantitative data, then how do I measure it? Not everything should be measured. Not everything is measurable. Just leave.
So how do you then juxtapose that with a need to, I guess, track progress? Because if you're not measuring stuff, then how do you know that you're progressing?
So that's a very great question,
Because we all
and I'm
want to
going to
feel
ask
like
it back to
we all
you.
want to feel like we're growing and we're progressing in whatever thing we're doing. If it's working out, or it's at work, or it's with,
Yes.
yeah.
So that is why it's like what. So you may be measuring the wrong thing. Like for example, your streak. Your streak is not actually any proof that you're learning anything on Duolingo. It's just a streak that you've opened the app and you've done some exercises. Same thing with the Bible app streak. Do you know, like in the Bible app, you don't even need to actually do anything to get that streak. You just need to open the app. Like once you open the app,
No, you
You
need
don't even
you
need
need
to
to
reach it. No, you don't
you
need
need
to
to
do
do
anything.
the
You
what's that
do
called?
not need to do
The daily
anything.
refresh.
I've done this many times before when I was crazy about my streak. I had like
Uh,
almost 600 day streak on Bible app. You don't need to do anything. You just need to open the app. You don't need to open the daily refresh or view the story or read a plan or read a chapter. You just need to open the app. Except they've changed it
they have.
recently.
Yeah.
But there was a time when you didn't need to do anything at all, just open the app. So okay, I opened the app. I have my 600-day Bible app streak, but have I actually learned anything? Have I grown spiritually?
Mm,
Do you see what I mean? Like we're measuring the wrong things
yeah.
most of the time. We're measuring the things that make us feel like we're making progress, not our actual progress.
Mm. That is a good point. Because
But anyway,
on some days, I just open my Duolingo and I just like race through a math problem and music problem, just so I keep the streak, not because I really give a shit about. Like I don't care about what the thing is trying to teach me on that day. I just want to make sure that I don't miss the streak. So it's more out of a
exactly,
fear or a driver to not break that number than anything else.
exactly.
I could also
I'm
argue that it does help you build some level of like discipline. Now that's a very
yeah.
that could be a shallow argument,
eh.
but it's also an angle.
I don't know. I don't know. Um, there is that quote about what gets measured gets managed, but my own addition to it is what gets measured gets managed but also gets manipulated because you can manipulate data. Like it's so easy to manipulate quantitative data, especially like super easy.
Hmm.
So it doesn't really matter. But anyway, enough about my thoughts. It's about you. What else?
Speaking of data, how's you recently got like your data science data analytics certification. So how's that? How have you been putting that to use like recently?
I'm actually not putting to use. I'm still doing my Python course. I'm not done. There are 5 courses I'm doing in the specialization. I've completed 2. I kind of paused on the third one because of my Dutch classes took too much time, but I'm going to get back on it soon. So yeah. But back to you. What else is on your mind today?
Okay, today something else that's on my mind today is being able to empathize, like people being able to empathize with scenarios um, or just situations that they find that they're exposed to while being able to separate their own
Hmm.
biases. I think it's something that I've noticed a lot, just in the human condition generally, both with people where we're from and just people where we're not from, like where we live in our countries. It's so you, for instance, like I see different scenarios where people are having like insanely intense arguments, and it's really just because they just can't accept the scenario is possible, and they also can't identify their own biases. Um, and because of that, like everyone is super doubling down on their own POV. When if you really just sit down and look at the situations, like you have this thought or this argument because you have this bias, and this person has a very different reality from you. And now that I'm saying this out, it's something I tell T all the time. It's basically two things can be true.
Or like Ben just says, 2 things can be false.
True, exactly. Two things can be true. Two things can be false.
But do you want to give a more concrete example because it's a bit abstract?
Yeah. So um, it's this is probably going to go in like a whole weird different angle, but let me see. So for instance, what's something that's very polarizing?
I don't know. It's your example.
Okay, I was trying to find something that it's an example could be
Anything can be
an
polarizing.
exact example could be uh see, did you really think of where you're trying to give an example and then nothing comes to mind
Nothing comes to mind here.
and you're just like there left blank staring. But okay, let me just pick a random thing. Say
What got you thinking about this? Was there a specific event, or can you not talk about it?
no, it wasn't a specific event. It's just being like you know how you just see things and you like you ruminate on the thing and then you see something else that reminds you of that and then you keep and it just
Yeah.
over time you just start thinking that like your mind starts drawing all those like threads together and
Yeah.
putting together a thing. Yeah, that's what, so I arrived at that point, but I can't say exactly what was the trigger. And so
Mm.
I put it down as something I was going to mention today. It's like it's a thing I've noticed. People are just not able to, and even me myself, I find myself in that scenario where like I'm having an argument about something and I just stop and realize, do you know what? I feel so passionate about this thing I'm saying or this point that I'm trying to make. But what's the whole point of arguments? Are you trying to convince that person that you're right? Or are you trying to convince that person to understand your point of view? Or are you just trying
Mm.
to argue because that person is wrong? And like
Mm.
it's not like it's just like why are we having these arguments in the first place? Do we just like to shout at other people? Or am I just
Yeah, we
yeah.
like to shout at other people.
And then so that's the thing. I think like and that's fine if you know that you just want to argue because you like to just throw your POV at someone else and they throw theirs back at you and you enjoy that like back and forth, that's fine. But when it comes to serious things, like being able to understand that when you see someone say something, they're saying it because they have a very different lived reality from you. And if you don't have that lived reality or anything similar to that, you're not like there's 9 out of 10 chance that you're not going to understand what they're saying or where they're coming from. And
Mm.
you're most likely like what happens most of the time is when you see something or experience something, your brain tries to relate it to something that you've seen before, heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it finds the closest thing, and so that's where your jump off point is in any conversation or anything you're doing. But most people don't realize that that's what it is, so they start making all these like, drawing what if scenarios, and no, it can't be this, it can't be that, and someone is telling you that I just eat pineapple on pizza, and that's just a thing that we do.
Mm.
That's a really shitty example, by the way. Uh,
It's actually a good example because food is actually one of those things where people go really crazy
yes,
about,
yes,
and it feels like a bit over the top
it is.
because like people can just be like, "Oh, I like this thing," and or this thing doesn't make sense to me. Like when you see videos of people making a particular meal, some kind of Nigerian soup or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
international meal from another country,
Yeah,
and everyone's like, "This is not the right way to make it,"
exactly.
but this is the way we make it in my house.
Yeah, and
And this is how it's since I was growing up.
exactly, and for me, that meal is always going to be that the way I've known it and the way I grew up knowing it.
Exactly.
Because you've known it differently, or because people where you're from do it differently, it doesn't change that for me. It just makes me be aware that okay, people enjoy or cook and
Oh,
cook this
there's a
meal.
different
There's a different
way.
way, but it's never going to change how it is. I'm also never going to feel like the way I cook it is wrong. So you can spend like there's no
Yeah.
point spending hours on the internet going back and forth and trying to convince me with people who have similar experiences like you that oh the way I cook it is wrong or the way I'm enjoying it is wrong or it's somehow it's just like a weird thing. Also, we all have biases as well. It's like if you being aware of
Mm.
your bias is also a very nice thing. Like
Very, very important.
yeah, because you know, so when you're arguing, you know that you know what, I'm very biased in this, and that's why I'm saying this, and I'm going to double down. It's like even though, you know, like I'm going to even though you to death
Yeah.
because I know that I'm biased and this is my bias, and that's what it is. No, it's fine. Like it's fine to know that that's what it is, but you can't be. I think it's very dangerous to go into like certain scenarios or conversations or arguments, not realizing that you're biased, and that's why you're having that
Mm.
POV. Because if you don't, then you just
And I think a problem is that people think of biases as a bad thing,
exactly
but I don't think they are necessarily bad things. I mean, there
no.
are some biases that are obviously bad, but it doesn't mean that all biases are bad. A bias is just basically something that you tend towards,
Yep.
and it's always almost like I can't think of any scenario where it's not based on your experience or the things around you or the culture that you are raised in.
Or your
So it's
values.
not really a bad thing, or yeah, which also come from the environment you're raised in
Yeah,
and the things that you believe.
yeah. It's like if you
So
believe
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just like giving room for the possibilities that other people see the world differently
differently.
than you
Yes,
because they have a different lived experience
yes,
than you.
yes. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing.
That's my new thing now. Just
We're very wise.
we are.
These are our friends. Yeah, we're wise. Why do you sound surprised? Can you not hear what we're talking about? It's very wise things.
Is this wise? It's just some random thing that's been on my mind and I put it down. Like
Early, go with it. Go with it. Go
oh
with it.
right, we're wise, we're wise. Okay. So
Yeah,
now that
exactly.
now that now that we've established like this is a space for wisdom, I think we need to also
Hmm.
address how we as adults are validating traumatic behavior experience as kids. And let's talk about that.
What?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't. Sorry, I'm not done my masters. What?
Oh my god. I just so basically it's I find that a lot of young adults, like our people in our age group, will like say,
Sorry, I'm a baby. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a
yeah,
baby.
like I'm Gen
But go
Z,
ahead.
but it's like I'm just saying, like people like Gen Z, like older Gen Z, and like younger millennials or zillennials, as we like to call them, we're reinforcing or validating behavior that we experienced as children, traumatic behavior as
And we're
adults.
making them seem like normal.
Yes. So it's like,
Can you give an example?
okay, good. So imagine someone who your parents or the person's parents maybe they grew up in a very violent childhood or family or maybe one of their parents left and you know that kind of thing and it was just some traumatic experience that children might go through or their parents were um very narcissistic. They grew up narcissistic
Hmm.
parents, one of parents or two parents, or their parents were not very present in their lives even though they were like, still a family, not a broken family. So imagine any of these scenarios and then you grow up with that and that shapes now who that person is and you grow up and then as an adult now, they have friends who have children, or they themselves have children, and they then begin to say things like, "Oh, I now understand why." my parents were like this, or why my mom would do this, or why my dad left.
Hmm.
Do you get that kind of thing? It's like, oh, like I've seen
Mm-hmm.
children, or I've been in, or maybe the person, like you find, I've seen a couple of things on the internet where people are like, you see a scenario where maybe a man left or a woman left their family of two children, left their kids or something, and just like, do you know what? Like, I actually get it now. I get why this person left there, and I'm just like, this is a really weird thing. Like, why are we all validating being like physically violent, like with children?
Mm.
Do you get it? It's like they now we
I
now
don't
are the ones
know
saying
that
they're
that
now.
is validation necessarily. I don't think it's validating. So I've talked before about this, so it's fine. How I grew up, like my mom used to beat me a lot,
Hmm.
like a lot. And even then, I knew, like, I wasn't saying that it was right for her to beat me, but I understood why it was happening. Like, from a, these are the emotional and psychological reasons why these things happened.
Hmm.
And it didn't mean that I was validating it. It just meant that I understood it. And she did, like, we had conversation about it. She apologized. She has greatly changed her behavior.
I mean,
In
I
that
would I'd
sense,
be
I mean, not that she
surprised in
can
the
beat
sense that she
me,
can beat you
not
now.
that she can beat me, but like, it wasn't just beating. It was also like verbal stuff. So
Yeah,
like, so that has changed as well. So it's not me saying that, oh, okay, this was fine, because I understand why it happened, but I do understand the things that led to her behavior. Not saying that the behavior was right, but I get it. And it's possible to hold those two things, like, oh, I
yeah,
understand why you behave in this manner, but
hmm,
that's actually also still not okay.
yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily validating the thing.
I like that you gave this scenario because the situation I'm speaking about then goes a step further to. And one, I'm happy that you have this conversation with your mom. A lot of people don't ever get the chance to, or don't even have the words to have like start these
Yeah.
conversations. But I think the problem I have with this is not stopping at understanding, but going a step further to then encourage or even part like
Ah,
or
okay.
repeat the behavior. So it's like I
Okay, I see what
understand
you
why
mean.
this person behaved that way because I'm now in a situation where I have a 6 year old or a 5 year old or an 11-year old. And instead of seeing, oh, this person is infuriating me so much, or they're doing certain things
There
where
was a better
there was a better, so
response.
you're in
You're
a
not
position to give a better response, but you're now deferring to the way your parents treated you or the way they responded in that scene as
the
the
bad response here.
yes, and saying, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to do the thing my parents did to me in a similar scenario, and I'm doing it because I understood why they did it
Mm.
now. Because obviously I was a child then, but now I'm an adult, and I see that how did like, and that's where I have a problem with it because we're now reinforcing and
Oh,
validating that
yeah, I see
behavior
what you mean.
as opposed to just keeping it at
Yeah.
look. I understood you were in a situation where you had to make a choice, and either because you didn't know any better or it was just for whatever reasons, like you made
Yeah.
that bad decision. I get it.
You made a bad
Yeah,
choice,
that's fine.
but
But
there was a better choice. Yeah.
exactly, and
Okay, I do understand what you mean now.
yeah, that's where I'm sort of talk about
And I do agree. That's weird. Like, when you see it, when you understand a bad thing, that, like, that's even more reason for you to not do the bad thing. Like, you
exactly,
know better.
exactly.
Like, so,
Yes, that's
and
that's that's
okay.
that's the thing that's been on my mind too. So, we're also
Okay.
getting a lot older, and like our friends are beginning to have children, and I'm just getting. I
Early,
guess
I'm a baby. I don't know what you're talking about. I am a baby.
look, if anybody is a baby, my name is literally early baby. Like if anybody is a baby, it's me.
My name is also Lade Baby. What are you talking about?
No, your name is Ladichuku.
Then you're eligible.
Fair enough. Okay, you can be Ladi baby for the purpose of this episode. People are having children here, and I guess I'm a bit concerned because you know your friends as your friends, and you know them as that, it's like who they are and who they show up to be. But then you probably never know them as parents, and you're not
Hmm.
pretty sure what things they've dealt with in their lives or what things they'll be bringing into like being parents. Everybody's also trying to be careful and nice, but to be honest, like they will. Like, we're not really sure who is who and how well of a parent like they can be. So I'm just really concerned because I also
You're
want.
concerned about the parenting skills of your friends.
I'm not concerned about their parenting skills. I'm just worried about them, like from a good place. Like I want them to do better. Like, it's easier for people to fall back into behavior that they're familiar with, as opposed to like charting new
Hmm.
behavior, creating new things. So
Yeah.
it's from that place that I'm worried about them, in the sense that I hope and pray that they're able to do the hard thing and create new, like, like have new patterns of behavior,
Yeah.
like in parenting and family, as opposed to just relying on what already exists and stuff that they've seen and been used to. Like that's just where I'm coming from.
Hmm.
And obviously, I,
I see.
I, I
I
can't
see.
I can't know because I'm not there every day. I'm not seeing what they're doing, but I'm just hoping that they're doing the right thing. Which then begs the
Okay, so
question.
the thing on your mind is like hoping that your friends are able to be better parents than their parents.
Yes,
Mm,
yes.
okay.
And then if you then realize that your friends are maybe making like exhibiting behavior that is slightly problematic, how do you address that? Because obviously, if you're not parents, then it's hard, right?
Well, that's a very good question, and a question I'm going to skip over because I don't know.
Why are you skipping over it?
I'm going to ask you the question because it's my podcast. I'm asking the question.
But
So
it's something onto my mind, so I'm bringing it here so we can have a
yeah, yeah. So
conversation.
no,
So,
no, no. Like, so we can delve deeper into your thoughts.
well, truth be told, is I'm still working on my playbook for that bit, so
Okay.
I might have a few
Me,
early
the answer
thoughts.
is I don't know. I think it depends on what kind of relationship you have with the person, like how close of friends you are, like in your level 1 to 5 friendship thing. Like somebody who is a number 5
Yes,
with you guys, that person is practically my sibling,
yes,
basically.
yes.
So there are a couple of my friends I think about as my siblings. Like you are my sister, you are my brother. I
Mm-hmm,
don't know what you're talking about.
mm-hmm,
So in that case, if I feel like you're doing something that might be weird or strange or harmful, I will talk to you about it, but in
yeah,
a very respectful, like it's not my life, it's not my child, but I love you, I love your child, and just based on that, I just because if my sister is being weird or my
mm-hmm,
brother is being, I will tell him and I
yeah,
will tell her.
yeah.
So,
Shout out to
and I will
sister.
expect that like my friends who I consider to be like that to me will also be able to call me out on bad behavior even towards my kids.
Yeah, that's the expectation.
Because like my mom, even like now, if she does something weird to someone, it's like we should not be doing that. That's not. So
Let's let's refrain from
so
such
like
behavior.
yeah, I think it depends on the level of like how the relationship is like, and also like if it's something that I witness, I mean obviously not in the moment, like it will give some time and be like, oh yeah, so you know that day when I was like, maybe we should reconsider other ways of handling such situation. I don't know, I've not been in the situation, so I don't actually know, but I think that this is what I would do. I don't know.
I think
Again, I'm not a parent, so
yeah, yeah. It's also very weird how people like just people generally don't take you seriously in certain scenarios. If you like, so it's like as a person, you're if you have a certain level of wisdom, just because of how just your experiences and how I guess wise or how you've acquired such wisdom, maybe life wisdom, things like that. Society sort
mhm.
of looks down on you if you're say you're a single person who has a lot maybe some wisdom to give married people. They're like, oh, like, you don't know what you're saying because you're not married.
Do you know I find that thing to be very, very annoying.
Yes. So then
I find it so irritating.
on the flip side, it's like you can't give people with children, parents, any advice because you don't have any of yours. And I'm like, no,
I don't
I don't agree
agree.
with that in a sense.
I've never agreed with that. Like it makes no sense. What it makes absolutely no sense to me that you people think that oh because you don't have this exact same experience
Mm,
as somebody else, then you have nothing to offer.
yes.
I don't know. I find that to be very strange.
Same.
That's just me.
No, no, I agree with you. Where it's a thing I find really weird too. So then it then just creates hush hush culture around like you because you see something wrong, you're not able to speak on it because one, you think that one just by reason of your situation and not being in a similar scenario, your opinions or your thoughts are invalid or they're not even taken
Yeah.
seriously.
And I think that's especially funny. I find it especially funny coming from Christians when
Oh,
that happens
don't go there.
because I also have the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. Exactly. No, seriously, I think more people need to sort of stop and think about like that thing. It's weird. It's like
Yeah, I find that weird.
so.
Okay, what else is on your mind? Is there anything else on your mind?
Um, I told you I had a laundry list, so if you really want to keep going, I think I'm gonna. Actually,
I think we can take two more.
something you mentioned is just more around how do you feel about people coming up to you, and is this something you've experienced before? Because you said you would go up to like you would pull up to your friend and tell them, "Oh, I think what you're doing is wrong." As have you had people come up to you to tell you, "Hey, I think that this thing you did or this behavior you're exhibiting is a bit off or weird, and maybe you should do something about it." I usually don't have that, so I'm beginning to think that I'm either really like the perfect person,
You're really well behaved.
yes, or people just don't give like a rat's ass about me and just like able to, or they just love me too much that they're indulging my bad behavior if I'm badly behaved. So I'm just wondering, like,
Hmm.
what is it?
So I think it's a tricky thing because most times when you're outside, like or when I say when you're outside, there's a level to which you behave yourself. Like even when you're among your friends, even
Hmm.
when you're like with people that you can like um be free with,
Yeah.
right? So even there, I think that there may be some self-censoring that is happening.
Ah. Okay.
That means that people may not be seeing the nonsense behaviors that you have, except people who are literally living with you. So, for example, my husband is always calling me out all the time, all the bloody time. I was like, like He's like, no, 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 Lade, you should not say that. That is not a nice thing to say.
That's me to
And I'm
T
just
all the
like,
time.
but it was a joke. He's like, no, 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 don't joke like that. That is not acceptable. I was like, okay, sorry. So like, but and there have been like, I think I can think of one or two other people, but it was like, oh, maybe I tweeted something and then they messaged me and be like, babe, no, 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 don't do that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so like, I think it's just like maybe the avenue for that doesn't come up often,
Hmm.
except somebody who is literally seeing you like
Yeah.
every day and seeing everything that you're doing. Because I also do the same with him. Like sometimes he does say something like, "Baby, you should not be doing. No, don't do
Hmm.
that. No, no, no,
Hmm.
no, no, no."
So I have a very similar experience to yours in the sense that like I find that the person who is telling me or giving me feedback around like behavioral things like, oh, I think you should, you know, this is how I think you show up and maybe you should look into that type of behavior is T, and vice versa. I do the same thing for her. But it then just makes me wonder, are we not showing up as our authentic selves day to day? And is it just like only one person who gets to see like the true us? Or have we just learned how to mask properly where our masked version is like, unless the version that you give outside and the person who you are outside and the mask you wear, unless like that there's such a like you're playing doing a bad job at keeping that
Yeah,
person up. Like that's the only time when you can get external advice, external like, people come into it. But if you're good on that end, then it's fine. You're
I
bad.
think it also depends because, like in a work setting, for example, you have colleagues or your manager who give you feedback about, oh, you should do this better, you should do this differently, you should not do this. So I think it just depends on what aspect of you a person is being exposed to often. So it's not that you're hiding necessarily. It's just that some aspects of you don't come out except in specific situations that this other person may not be exposed to.
Okay, so work is perfect, and your relationship, your romantic relationship is also perfect because those people probably see you the most,
Exactly.
and spend
That's
the most
why
time with
like
you.
I don't think it's that you're necessarily hiding. It's just that like there's sometimes nothing to talk about because just what we're seeing, just based on the circumstances of the engagements that we have
Yes.
is different.
Okay.
And I would say also that I got this kind of feedback more often from my friends when we're all in Unilag together and we're
Mm,
seeing each other almost every day.
okay.
Everyone used to tackle me about my dressing all the time. So like all the time, that babe was not having she was not having it with my dressing. So like it's just the frequency with which we interact with our friends tends to go down as we grow older because
You're not in the
people
same
are doing
spaces
different things. Like
anymore.
when last did I see you?
Fair enough.
So like I can't give you that kind of feedback. And I'm very sure when we're working as a CEO together, I used to give you this kind of feedback. I'm very, very sure.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
So
not.
sure.
Probably not often because
I'm so sure.
I was an angel. But yeah, that
Of
makes sense.
course,
That
if
makes
you
sense.
insist. But and then I also think that sometimes people may think that it's not worth talking about, like it's not a big deal. Which is why I think it's also important to once in a while ask your friends like, where do I suck?
Mm.
What things do I need to improve? That whole radical candor thing, like ask
Now,
your friends to give you feedback,
what if
basically.
so my fear with that, I agree with doing that, but my fear with that is one, what if you don't trust them enough one to have a handle on how to express what it is they're trying to say? So someone might want to say something that say you you tend to you tend to interject or maybe you tend to sort of like hog the conversation every time, but they might not know how to express that. For instance, it's a very light example, and they tell you something and it comes off as, oh, you're a bit rude.
Well, I think that
Like it's like I
it's
need to
like,
be
do
able
I
to trust
trust
that
my friend's intentions? Like this is actually my friend.
okay, yeah, but so the thing is it's giving feedback and it's taking feedback, and I think language and communication skills are very key to just that whole exchange. If the
Yeah,
person
I think
doesn't know
there's
how to
that.
do that, then how do you know that I'm not going
No,
to get it wrong?
I think there's that, but then I think there's also the place of if this person is really, really my friend, like a level
Hmm.
4, level 5 friend,
Yeah,
and I trust this person, I have to trust that they are talking from a good place and it's not malicious or
of
to
course,
hurt me.
of course.
So if I cannot trust that, then you shouldn't be asking that person for their honest feedback.
Okay.
Because the thing about honest feedback, especially when it's like, what, where do I suck? Is that it will hurt. It will be like, wow, wow, so I'm a terrible person.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
you have to be able to like trust that this is from a good place because this person cares about me. The work is actually more on you, not on the friend. It's on you to regulate your emotions to separate that irrational upstairs brain that wants to like guard yourself against everything that is perceived to be an attack, but actually say that, oh, okay, no, this is not an attack. This is my friend who loves me and cares about me, telling me something that I don't want to receive, but I need to receive.
Hmm. That makes sense. I agree with that.
That's what I think about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I agree with that. The last thing on my mind is faith. What's something that you find that you've been learning in faith recently?
So I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Good one, good one. Okay. To be honest, I'm today's host in a sense because I seem to be the one who's just driving this conversation. So just to wrap it up, welcome to
What are you on about?
this is a takeover. If you don't realize, this is a podcast takeover.
Just answer the question first, then you can take over. Well,
Okay,
answer the question.
okay. Um, it's it probably is on, I guess, realizing that. Um, Let me actually put it up. I wrote it down somewhere. Okay, so it was the thing I was trying to talk about. Ah, right, right, right. It was with I think Ebele the Seventh. She had a video that she put up about things that were not sinful, but things were also just like having how to explain it. She was talking about just being careful as in your work of faith and reminding people that the goal is to be more like Jesus in a sense, and in doing that, so some things might not be sinful and it might be lawful, but in understanding how to find a balance. And the example she gave was very interesting. So she said it was comfort food, and knowing that using things like food and music and maybe spending time with people or just traveling to feel in a way that doesn't glorify God, in a way that is then emotion driven. So you had a bad experience, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling pain, and instead of doing it the way maybe God would want you to do it, or maybe speaking to Him or praying or spending time with friends, you're throwing yourself into food and using food to fill that hole, or maybe shopping, for instance. Now, shopping in itself is not
Yeah.
bad, or eating food and enjoying yourself is not bad, but it's just used like what is behind that? Is that how it was intended to? And it's I guess it's a very thin line.
Yeah, I totally agree and understand that, because it's that thing of like idols, but we don't see them as idols because it's not like a graven image
Yeah,
in front of
yeah,
you.
yeah.
It's it's like an amorphous thing. Hmm.
I'm up for us. Oh,
um
okay, okay. That's your word for today.
so it's like, okay, I'm sad. Instead of me going to God with my emotions or praying about it or reading my Bible, I'm then going to eat a bowl of ice cream.
Yes,
So in that
yes.
moment, I'm replacing comfort from the Holy Spirit and
With
comfort from God with comfort from food.
from food. Yes.
So it's that thing of, it's not the thing in itself is not wrong. Like
Mhm.
eating ice cream is not bad, but
No.
like, why am I eating the ice cream?
Yes. Yes. That's pretty much the thing I was thinking about, and it then just got me to thinking about things. It's like sometimes when I feel certain ways, or when I feel a certain way, like I find that my own the thing I do is maybe I reach for music, and I know like different types of music like work in different types of ways, and it's like listening to music is not
Hmm.
bad generally, but when you begin to use it emotionally, um, in a way where instead of
Like
maybe praying about
to feed
something,
your flesh,
yeah, to feed your
basically.
flesh exactly, it was more of like flesh driven and having it be a coping mechanism for something else as opposed to just addressing what it is. So you'd rather spend your time, say, stuffing your face with comfort food or binge watching something to take your mind away from something, or maybe listening to music to change your mood, as opposed to maybe praying
Going to
about
God.
it or
Yeah.
going to God or talking to someone about it or addressing a situation. So instead of someone hurts you and you're non-confrontational, you don't want to address that situation and say, "Hey, this thing you did hurt me," and I think that it would be like
Yeah.
it would be good for you to not do that again or this is how I felt. Instead of doing that, you're just like, yeah, no, no, maybe you go and cry or listen to sad music um, and deal with that.
Yeah. And I think for me, the realization that I've had as well is somewhat similar. Like my most recent faith learning or thing is somewhat similar to this, and is also how we as people often have this temptation where there's a way in which we can engage with quote unquote spiritual things like fasting, praying, reading the
Yeah.
Bible in a way that is serving the flesh. And I've talked about it on podcast as well recently.
Hmm.
How we can read the Bible looking for ourselves in it and not God, looking for something that is not God inside, and how we can tell ourselves that, oh, I want to be a kingdom influencer, I want to be rich so I can sponsor the gospel,
Hmm.
but it's not really that. It's there's a desire of the flesh in there,
Yes.
and it's because if you want to be a gospel kingdom financer or whatever, you can actually just start now. You don't have to be a millionaire,
Exactly.
right? So it's like hiding our own
Fleshly
selfish
desires
desires and desires of
behind.
our flesh behind something that appears to be spiritual or of God.
Yep. Like wrapping it
And
in
it's a
that.
very thin line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I have big dreams. Dreams will take over the nations. Will take over the. I will enter into the government.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a thirst for power
Shielded or shrouded in that. Yeah.
and to yourself. You have told yourself that no, it's so that I can go in there and influence for God.
Yes.
Okay, but you've not yet influenced your own self for God. You've not yet influenced the people around you
Yep.
for God.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's the one that's been on my mind.
Yeah. I think like those are just things to constantly be aware of. And I think for me, it's just a struggle for just because there's so many things to be aware of and so many things to just constantly keep top of mind because maybe just how my own brain is wired. Like now, this is something that I'm thinking about, but maybe in 2 weeks it might be some other thing, and then this thing just sort of disappears into the ether until something else triggers it again. And it's just like, how do you balance the awareness of all these things that are supposed to just be make sure that you're running your race right and like living sort of the right life and the right way? Um,
I don't think that it's possible to be conscious of every single thing at every single point in time. And so I think that even like from a Christian perspective, it's about I feel like for me, I'm trying to get to the place where I'm not too focused on what I am not doing and what I should not be doing, but more focused on God and what He wants me to be doing at this particular point. And I think that there's a way in which you live your life in that manner where you're just focused on God and talking with God and praying and communing with God.
mhm.
That if there is a thing to be corrected, God will point it out to you.
Right.
And I just thought of an example now. David.
Okay.
David wasn't like consciously like always I mean he was always talking to God and always asking God for direction and everything and he was like attuned with God or whatever. But when the whole thing with Bathsheba and Uriah when he basically raped her and killed her husband,
Hmm.
he wasn't there going to God like am I doing the right thing? Like God came to him and like you have done a bad thing. And then even Saul that was not like seeking God out necessarily. When he did the bad things, God went to him and told him, "You have done a bad thing."
Yes.
When Cain was angry, God went to him and said, "Why are you angry?" When he killed his brother, God came to him and said, "Why? Where is your brother?"
Hmm.
So I think that I'm trying to get to the point where I'm not so focused on all the things I might be doing wrong because that's also another problem. Because what you behold, you become. If I'm constantly focusing on all the things that are not right, like how am I going to focus my like I think it's where you focus your attention on also matters, which is not to say to ignore sin and things that are wrong in your life, but just not from a perspective of I need to avoid this sin, I need to avoid this sin, but more from a I need to live as Jesus did. I need to follow the example of Jesus.
Hmm.
Like it's kind of the same thing, but where your energy is focused on is quite different.
Yes.
So yeah, that's how I think about this because I've also like I used to struggle with that like oh there's so many things I need to not do and so many things I need to keep in my head and all of those things. But I also just think that the more we spend time with Jesus and the more we just focus on Jesus and doing as he's revealing to us and moving with him, the more these things become easier to an extent. Not to say that you will not struggle still sometimes, but it's easier when your eyes are fixed on Jesus.
Mm. That makes so much sense, actually. That makes so much sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, cool.
Really,
So I guess we should call it a wrap. It's been over an hour.
wow, I can't even tell.
um Yeah, like I didn't realize it was about an hour. But is there any last thoughts that you would like to share with me on the podcast today? And would you like people to connect with you if they want to? Where can they find you?
Right. I think the last thoughts would be just be a kind person. I think people should be kinder. The world is becoming a very stressful place to be in, and I think there needs to be more kindness in the world. So,
I
um,
agree with you.
yeah. Like, people keep saying there needs to be more love, but I think that's bullshit, and it's just marketing. There needs to be
No,
more.
no, 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 no.
Just
I
because
don't agree.
hold on, like I'm obviously that was a very controversial way to phrase it, but we've said let there be more love, and everyone like has taken that as become a marketing like phrase. Oh, let there be love, love one another, like lead with love, da 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 da. But to be honest, I think kindness is the base level way to show, like, to start leading with love. If you're unsure how to lead with love, do a kind thing to someone, and then you begin to start, like, if you live your life with more kindness, then you're inadvertently living a life like that is loving, that you're with love for your next man and your fellow person. So
Do you know, I have an episode. I feel like you don't listen to my podcast, but it's okay. I have an
that's
episode
not. Why
about
would you accuse me?
this.
Such accusations, laddie.
I didn't accuse. I said how I feel. I didn't
Okay.
say you did anything or you
Well,
didn't do anything.
well, your feelings are making my feelings feel things. So
Sorry about your feelings. But I have another. There was an episode I recorded a while back about love and why I truly think that love is really the answer to all of the world's problems. And it's a breakdown of like First Corinthians 13 because
yes,
I don't want to go into a whole thing now, but because we're supposed to be wrapping it up. But I do think that if everyone displays love in the manner in which it is described in First Corinthians 13, like all of the world's problems will be solved.
yes, yes,
That
yes.
is why I do agree that love is the answer is crap. It's the truth
Well,
because there is a definition of love,
good. So
and
so you're in a uniquely positioned place to see it from that angle. For everyone else who doesn't probably understand how to explain, I think it's verse 14 or verse 4, verse 3, if I'm not mistaken, where it basically says love is this, love is that, love never, like the attributes of love,
yeah,
right? Yeah. You're in a very unique position to, and also from a place of understanding, like you have that understanding to see that from that position where you're sat, love is the answer. But for most people, saying love is the answer is just okay, love is the answer. Yeah, sure, love. Like, how do you actually take that and be practical? So I guess my advice and my last words were coming from a more practical point. Like, I've heard that so many times, and I've seen how people don't really understand how to interpret it in their day to day. So I chose to go with lead with kindness as one way to show love or to be loving. If
yeah.
people want to reach out to me, you can do that on pretty much anywhere. My name or my handle is Early Anto. That's EARLYATTOH, or Early Baby if you just don't want to type all that. So that's it.
Cool. Thank you so much. I had a great time. It was a great
I had a
conversation.
blast.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you for
I'm sure
having
there are
me.
more things on your mind, but we
No,
can't go to all
no.
of it.
I think the final
You,
thought, final resting thought would be if actually now that we're talking about, if anyone, especially you, Lade, if you ever wake up in the night to poo, please send me a DM
oh
and
my
let me know how it
god.
feels.
Oh my
I,
god.
I
How do we get back
I
here?
think it's such a good way to close things off.
Bye.
If you're gonna reach
Bye.
out to me on
Bye.
socials or anywhere,
Get off my
just
podcast.
let me know
Get
if
off my
you've
podcast.
ever woken up to poo in the night and what that feels like.
I said
I
I
will
said
respond
bye.
immediately. Bye.
Also ask me questions. Submit a question. Submit a question. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.